The beauty of nature is that it speaks a language that our soul understands. We're instinctively drawn to flowers that we love. When you engage with an essence, you are bringing in the pure, unadulterated software of nature, the pure frequency, and you're bringing that into your own energy field. It's tuning into another level of knowing, of knowledge, of wisdom that's written in nature. And we're kind of, if you like, reweaving tapestries of wisdom, of light wisdom in the areas where we live.
Just 23 miles away is Orchard Oast Flower Farm, home to Shelley Sishton and her husband, Ian. The blooms are at the heart of their well-being therapy business, which includes making flower essences.
As many of you know, my work is focused on exploring the subtle energy, the invisible energy that goes to make up the reality that we experience day to day as human beings. And part of the way we do that is through using dowsing in a kind of a practical spirituality so that we can intentionally, positively affect our well-being. So what happens when we apply this skill of dowsing to the living and breathing physical world of nature? Today I'm joined by Shelley Sishton. Shelley is a flower essence farmer, and as you'll hear, this means that in her work she is actively co-creating with nature spirits and delving into the quantum mind of the land. In this conversation we look at how flower essences are like pure software for the soul, and how we can all use nature as a library of wisdom. Join us as we explore the magic of nature and the subtle frequencies that really do connect us all. Shelley, tell us a little bit about your journey to how you've got to where you are today and how you have now found yourself working with nature and the, I'm going to use the word magic of nature in this sense of working with flower essences. Tell us about all that.
I came across flower essences 30 years ago. And at that time, I was in I had a corporate life as a director of a London advertising agency, and was a total skeptic, very proud skeptic at the time. Um, my husband and I were going through a journey of IVF treatment, and a friend, because it wasn't working, a friend introduced me to flower essences. And I said, "What are they?" And my friend said, "Their energy in a bottle." And I was like, "Yeah, right, okay." um, mind going, how on earth is that going to do anything? Why is that relevant? But because it was a very dear friend who was exploring all sorts of uh, curious things for me at the time, I was interested. I politely took flower essence. We all have our own intuitive language that speaks to us all the time. It's just that in the Western world, we're not. I certainly wasn't. I spent the first 33 years of my life in complete ignorance, I'd say, of my intuitive inner teacher. um, and had to make myself not only the journey of IVF, but had to make myself very ill, a very low immunity and low energy, etc., etc. So to get to the point of having a wake-up call through somebody giving me energy in a bottle, and that was enough of a kick, enough of a spark to ignite my curiosity I thought, well, I started to explore the science of it. From having a science degree, I thought, okay, and a very intellectual, skeptical mind. Well, there must be proof. Look, let me see the proof, and that, in turn, began to open up a whole world that I never knew existed of scientists at the time that have become well accepted now. I listened to Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay, and Biology of Belief. Bruce Lipton was new at the time, and all these fields of um, science and linking mind, body, and this thing called spirit that I was still very much attaching to religion. Now I look on it as everyone has their own interpretation. Being Australian by birth, I resonate very much with the Aboriginal take of Great Spirit, that everything is infused with pure consciousness, Great Spirit, and the Great Spirit of nature. And When I now talk about essences, I talk about them as medicine, which connects you, medicine in the sense of that which connects you with your own essence and with the essence of Great Spirit. Medicine, as in the way the ancients talk about medicine. If people know about flower essences, they know about bark flower remedies. The correct pronunciation I've been told very recently is Bach flower essences. My first introduction, being born in Australia, came as the Australian bush flower essences, and it was this particular essence, which is called she oak, which helps with infertility and nourishing the hara center, the womb area, and hydrating it. My friend also gave me a book at the same time, and a spark was ignited, which 30 years later has evolved into very exciting new projects and a complete love and connection and working with the magic of nature, as you say. So um, an essence it's the unique vibrational signature of an element of nature. Now, that could be a flower, it could be a tree, it can be an environment. An essence takes into account that everything is energy. Everything is resonating, pure consciousness. So, an essence is a particular frequency that exists within the quantum field of all life everywhere. When you talk about a flower essence, you are talking about one, like a single note, if you like, playing a note or a particular frequency that you've isolated from the quantum field of absolutely everything that exists. And nature itself I look at it as now as a complete library. It's like this whole symphony of music that's playing. It's a library of wisdom that has existed since the beginning of time, if there is a beginning of time. And every element of nature that's written that exists, has its own code and its unique piece of software, if you like, written into the quantum field. So an essence is non-physical. There's nothing biochemical in a bottle of essence here. How an essence is made is this is cow parsley, which is in season at the moment in the UK. How an essence is made, and here is cow parsley. Cow parsley presents itself as interconnectedness, bringing everything together, and it's very good. It's like synaptic connections. It's like if there's communications in the body between cells need igniting. It's about bringing communities together. It's really, if you look at the structure of the flower and the doctrine of signatures, that gives away a little bit about its own spirit, if you like, its essence qualities. So, for example, cow parsley is playing a particular note. So, to me, I look at it from my science background, as seeing it as condensed spirit matter or condensed matter from the quantum field, and as it condenses down into physical form, because I see everything in vibrational etheric form before it becomes physical. Even us, our physical body, is the last thing to manifest onto this divine sacred geometry platform and structure. So every element of nature manifests itself from the quantum field according to a very specific geometry pattern, color encoded, and all of that is condensed vibration. It's frequencies that are becoming ever more slow, if you like our DNA does. It becomes slower as it condenses and comes into physical form. So within a flower, yes, there's a molecular structure, but even the molecular structures that make up flower are vibrating. It's well accepted now that thoughts, emotions have their own they're non-physical, they have their own energy. We know the influence of thoughts on our thoughts generate our feelings, and thoughts and feelings have an enormous influence on our physiology. So an essence is a frequency. It's a very unique, specific frequency. When you engage with an essence, you are bringing in, if you like, the pure, unadulterated software of nature, the uncorrupted element, if you like, the pure frequency, pure coding of nature, and you're bringing that into your own energy field. And when it enters your energy field, the corrupted software that you've taken on with a repetitive thought pattern that dumbs you down, with an emotion that is restricting you, this bringing this corrective, if you like, or pure consciousness of nature into your being in essence form, um, ignites remembrance of what's underneath those patterns. Because it was Dr. H who said that everything that we seek is already within us. There's nothing external. We are what we seek. And the beauty of nature, to me, is that it speaks a language that our soul understands. I have a saying, flowers speak a language that your soul understands. We're instinctively drawn to flowers that we love, but within that, there's a reason within that. The flowers are speaking to us in code through color, through sacred geometry, through the invisible essence, through the invisible frequency that we can sense. And there's part of us that's calling us to the flower, saying, this is you need me. You need this flower. You need this element of nature. You need this tree. You need to be by this river because it has the software that can dissolve this corruptive software that you've taken on through your ancestors, through social conditioning, through upbringing, and that's not blaming anybody for anything that we've taken on. It's the way that the human psyche is. We have free will to adopt patterns from whomever and wherever and in whatever situation we choose. And those patterns, if we are constantly, if we are open and exposed to them often enough, become belief systems. If you think a thought once, twice, and then it becomes repetitive day after day after day. And before you know it, it's like a software program that you're running. And suddenly you think, why don't I feel so great? And you can't identify the program often enough because it has smothered. It's a bit like the undergrowth, it started to smother your own natural expression, your own essence, your own connection or expression of pure consciousness. So bringing an essence into your energy field, and you do that by taking it as drops, or you can put it topically in the body, you can bathe in it. There's all kinds of different ways you can take an essence. There's part of you that will instantly recognize, oh, I remember what peace feels like. I remember love. I remember courage. I remember life without fear. And gradually, as Dr. Bates said, what an essence does is it starts to dissolve the conflict between the mind and what patterns that are going on in here, the software programs, and the soul forces. And the soul forces, if you like, are our own essence, our own pure consciousness that is constantly speaking to us 24/7 by this gentle guiding voice of feelings. Nature is this most incredible library of all of these individual notes, frequencies, pieces of software, if you like, which make up this giant living library, this extraordinary matrix of code, light matrix. I want to emphasize it's a light matrix that's there. That's there, that's always been there. It's constantly there for us, and especially in the last five, especially since COVID, when everyone was told you can't be in nature, when everybody's immediate reaction was, I have to be in nature, I have to be in nature. It's like this instinct of I need this connection. And particularly in the last 5 years, you and I have noticed it, this extraordinary interest now in this thing called nature. It's accepted now for mental and emotional well-being. I think what you and I know is there's now the step that's about to be taken to embrace the quantum mind of nature, which is expressed, and we each interact with it in our own way, and explore it, and love to share our own our own experience and teaching of it to with people in our own way. Mine is through understanding the library, the essence library of nature, and how to bring that to life.
For many of these years that you've been exploring and discovering more about flowers and the that natural quantum mind of nature, which is a wonderful expression. It's lovely. Um, you were working one to one with people. You were sort of working as a well-being practitioner using the essences. Is
Yes,
that correct?
yes, absolutely. I switched very quickly. I began to do, we're talking about the mid-90s onwards. I began to do, at that time, global essence producers were like the Australian bush flowers, the Alaskan essences, ranges from Germany to Nepal, America. These different producers were coming over to the UK, giving workshops. And I went to as many as I could. And the classic me at the time, I was learning about these essences. I was learning them parrot fashion. Oh, this one does this one does that one does that. And then I came across a course by my own mentor, Claire G. Harvey. And I studied flower essences on a very intensive 2 year diploma course. I'd call it a degree course because it was one weekend in person with a group, for 2 years every month, one weekend a month for 2 years. And we studied a different range, so like 24 different ranges of essences over that weekend. And you ended up taking, she said, I remember turning up on the course, and we were sitting in a circle, and I had my notepad and pen ready to take notes. And she said that the first range was the H bark flowers. And she said, right, you're going to, each of you will all take the essence. I'll hand it round. And it was a blank bottle. It had no name on it, which was like, oh dear, this is a bit. And you're going to take the essence and you're going to meditate with it and tell everyone your experience. And then your homework is going to be working out what your experience was versus the quality of the essence that I'll tell you about. And the whole course is about learning your intuitive language. And I was like, excuse me, I'm on the wrong course. No. I've been to all these courses. I've learned what the bush flowers do, the Alaskans, so you're here to tell me what all these do, and I'll learn them. And then when clients come to me, I can just sit and I'll say, oh, you've got that going on. You need X, Y, and Z. And so, of course, I took the first essence and had a image, and three people before me were having angelic experiences and voices and messages coming, and I said, mumbled, I saw my kitchen sink and a pink flower. I was so embarrassed. It was like anyway, it turns out it was impatiens, which is busy Lizzie, and I had a pot of these growing on my kitchen windowsill. So the whole course indeed was about learning one's own intuitive language. There was one guy who received messages from the essences in song. He had a whole songbook from Queen to, David Cassidy, you name it. And so what happened was, after I switched from advertising, doing my flower essence diploma course, to then straight into setting up my own private practice. And I was getting, people didn't know about essences, but I was absolutely loving it. They were coming for all kinds of things, and it was very good learning, grounding, to have all kinds of people coming, all ages, animals, from dogs, racehorses, guinea pigs, to people of all ages, with all kinds of conditions. And you're still not, I should put a caveat in this, that I am not permitted to talk about or suggest that essences are used for physical conditions. I will let people make the connections of mind, body, essence, emotion. So there is no separation between any of it. It's all a quantum field of flowing magical energy, so which links us into nature. So I ended up doing very quick consultations where people would come in, and I would have, intuitively, I'd tune in before and I'd line some bottles up and I'd say, just choose. And they'd go, I'll have those 6. And then I'd go through the qualities of each of those essences, and oh, that's exactly spot on. I'm like, okay, thanks, and off you go. And it was for me a stepping stone, because it's like, okay, people flowers really do speak a language that people's soul understands. I've been saying it, but it's like, no, there's really something going on here. That was in 2015, the same year that I was called to expand my flower essence making range. It had been just a few garden flowers, enter um, flower farming. And 2015, I came across the term flower farming on the internet, and I didn't know there was such a thing. The British flower farming industry was about regenerating, growing local, sustainable, chemical-free flowers, because 90% of flowers at that time, and only 85% now, so still 85%, sorry, are imported. And especially since the EU, with the importation, it means that there are pesticides, chemicals, checks, to keep these flowers alive, because the flowers that you buy in the supermarket, for example, have already been in the UK for 5 or 6 days before, because they've been checked and processed and sent out to a wholesaler and packaged, and before that they will have been picked. So they've probably been picked about 10 days before you get them in the supermarket. So they have to be kept alive, and they're kept alive by growing them with chemicals and then using chemicals to keep them alive before they come into your home. So the British flower farming movement is about growing fresh, beautiful seasonal, like seasonal food, and provenance of food was very big, and has only got bigger in the last 15 years. At that time, and 2015, 2016, the provenance of flowers was quite new to people. That's become a lot more accepted and more known about now. Um, I was very guided when I saw flower farming to explore it. Ian and I started, we had a large 2-acre garden at the time, to start growing British seasonal flowers. I had a rewilded garden, I would call it, at the time. Um, we did it through, I should also have introduced before now the element of working with the nature spirits, the devas, the angelic realms, in terms of creating an essence, because um, it's not me that decides when to create an essence. There is a calling. There's a knowing. For me, there's a knowing that comes about 10 days before the essence comes, and I get a feeling if there's an essence to be made, and then time gets closer, I get to know which area of the where I'm growing it will be, and then 2 days before, it's usually the flower, and on the day then it is which flower. So if there's an orange rose bush, I might be looking at a whole cluster of stems, and there might be 20 flowers in bloom, and there'll be one flower that goes, me, I'm the one. I'm the one that you make an essence with. So, um, and as part of that, then, when an essence is being made, I make an essence through holding a bowl of spring water under the flower. I pour spring water through the energy field of the flower. So as the water is coming into the bowl of spring water that's there already, they're combining, and with Masaru Emoto and Veda Austin style, the energy of the flower is imprinted in the water. Then I make a mother tincture, etc., etc. But within that, there is a whole within every essence that's made, there is a whole group of specific for that flower nature spirits at different frequencies of presence. There are, there ends up being, if you like, the frequency, the deva of this particular orange rose present, and I'm very visual. That's my language. I see them feeding information, if you like, down through the frequencies, and I see it being literally woven in code form into the water as the water is flowing through the flower. It's like the fairies are the last ones to drop their magic in and weave it as it comes down through the flower, energetic field of the flower into the water. So there's a whole co-creative process that goes on there. So with flower farming, I didn't know where it would go or what it was about, but it made sense after working with energy in a bottle for so long, the energy of flowers in a bottle, and energy of flowers from around the world for so long in bottles. My real passion is helping people know about the flower essences, know about the profound but gentle effects of flower essences to bring us back to our own essence and this extraordinary connection that comes from that, therefore, with nature, with Great Spirit, with the quantum library and mind of nature. And I found that the stepping stones were working with essences for so long, the little step of then showing people pictures of flowers and making the connections, to then working with nature spirits to grow British seasonal flowers as a living flower essence pharmacy. I realized that having made such a connection, we'd at that point been living in our Oast house for 2-acre garden for 16 years. So I had a really strong connection with the energy of the land, the flow, the nature spirits that were there, the nature spirits, the valleys, the places that we walked in. There's a whole, how can I say? Again, I see it as just this matrix of welcoming in the area that was beginning to spread out to sort of through the neighborhood from our garden. And starting to grow then the flowers. It wasn't us that decided where to place the beds or how many beds to grow or what flowers to grow, down to which seeds to grow, where to buy the seeds. It was always guided by the subtle realms of nature, which I loved. So I love detail, and I loved being taken down from the bigger picture right down to, okay, now I've got all these seeds, even down to the kind of soil, blessing the soil, where do we place the beds, and then starting. It was a miracle, absolute miracle, and a joy seeing the tiny seeds that are a miracle in themselves, these tiny seeds coming to life, and that I planted. I didn't count myself as a gardener before that, but seeing these seeds growing and then going out with them to the areas that the nature spirits had said, okay, we need a growing area here, over here, and we need one there, made no sense because most flower farms are laid out in rows, and people go up and down cutting the rows, which makes a lot of sense actually. But where we were at the time, it was no, we need here, here, and here because it reflects the grid. And if we grow according to I had no idea how this was connecting with the grid in my area. I just followed instructions, did as I was guided to by what I felt was right in my heart and soul. And in doing so, it's like this amazing tapestry started to grow in different pockets of the garden. And then the whole garden became this tapestry. But the tapestry of light, because the flowers that were growing with the nature spirits they had such a vibrancy to them, such an extraordinary energy that blew. It was Ian and I and the dogs would just like sit there sometimes looking at them going, wow, this is amazing. So healing in itself. So yeah, planting for me, in planting the beds, I was told there would be one anchor flower. So that anchor flower, from all the hundreds of seedlings that I've grown, I look at the seedlings and there's one flower pops up and goes, me, I'm the anchor. And that anchor flower is then it tells they tell me where to plant them. And from that, I start to weave this tapestry outwards. I'm not planting in rows. I'm not planting according to what I think needs to go where. And then what grows is this extraordinary matrix of floral wonder, color, light, geometries, sounds, just feelings that everybody who came to look at these flowers just went, oh, oh, including us every day. And it did feel like pure magic, pure magic.
And all of this knowledge, all of this wonderful experience that you've had, you're now putting that into a new project, which you're hoping to start at the end of this year and
Yes,
carry through next year. Tell us about that
yes,
in broad terms. What's that all about?
thanks.
Because that is so exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Um, so after growing the flowers, in a couple of places now, in this way, guided by nature, and knowing that the benefits, that people get from the bouquets that we were creating, the posies, we started to do large scale installations with these flowers that people knew instinctively felt different, and I began to sell, as I call them, flower medicine bouquets, which had the living essence of the flower. So I knew there was great potential. There was more going on than even I understood. Um, and just at the end of last year, as recent as that, I I walking, and the term was very loudly heard: flower essence farming. Makes perfect sense. I understand flower farming. I now am an experienced British flower farmer stroke grower. Teach people how to arrange flowers with spirit so they understand the consciousness, the essence of the flowers that they're working with. So I understood working with the flowers that I'd grown in many different ways to respect and to teach about the essence of flowers and nature. This then came through flower essence farming as being able to encapsulate all of this experience, if you like, the last 30 years of going from energy in a bottle to growing living, our own living flower essence pharmacy, to teach people how to grow flowers as a living flower essence pharmacy themselves. And that could be, you don't have to have a large plot. It could be a few pots in your garden. It could be you are an experienced gardener and you want to do it in your garden rather than as a field, or you've got a plot that you want to grow, you've got a field, you want to grow a living flower pharmacy there. So nature will be calling people now to this. People, I feel instinctively, will put their hands up saying, I'm ready to grow a living flower essence pharmacy. Because just by having people come and see those flowers is healing for them. Just by having them look, by having them, letting them pick their own flowers, or letting them pick a flower that's been grown with the nature spirits and laying it on their body, and they can meditate under a tree in your garden for 10 minutes. That's medicine, that's healing, that's reconnection with the quantum mind of nature right there. Allowing people to take away their own essence, enabling people to make essences from flowers that have been grown a co-creative partnership with the subtle realms of nature. So it's not any one of, if anyone's interested in doing this course, it's not any one of us deciding how many plots you grow or how many pots you grow. It's stepping back from that and beginning from the perspective of the quantum mind of nature and being directed then down through the realms, right down to, okay, this is actually my seed supplier because it's local. These are the flowers that are going to work in my area, my part of the world. This is how I'm going to grow in Australia. This is how I'm going to grow in South America because it suits. And it's not just it suits my climate. It's not just because they're seasonal flowers that everyone else is growing in my area. It's tuning into another level of knowing, of knowledge, of wisdom that's written in nature. And we're kind of creating tapestry, if you like, reweaving tapestries of wisdom, of light wisdom in the areas where we live.
What I do want to just mention for the folks
Yeah.
here to really start to bring this really applicable to the channel, to their experience of life and what they've learnt from the channel, which is fundamentally about dowsing. Now, you've been kind enough to invite me to present or to host, however you want to express it. Hey, there you go.
I
To
douse for everything, by the way. Yeah, that's
right.
my connection, my communication with the nature spirits and the
That's what
subtle
I
realm.
was going to ask is how do you see dowsing coming into part of this wonderful project that you're doing? How do you see this connection and connecting in with the light grid and the quantum mind of nature?
Well, from my first introduction to flower essences, I was also at the same time, I should have said, introduced to dowsing, and have been doing it for 30 years now. So, and it's how I have a different relationship with it now, because as you know, it's a very personal relationship with your own um, dowsing and the way one does express it. For me, it's like I feel an absolute connection when I'm dowsing. It's like a part of me that's the absolute confirmation of yes, whilst there is no right or wrong, this is the way. This is the way. So it's an essential part. And for me, it's if I'm having a conversation with nature spirits or angelic realms in any area, I'm doing it while I'm dowsing and I'm asking a question, I'm getting a yes, no, or so it's like a communication bridge for me. So it's an essential part of it and connecting with the earth energies. It's intrinsic and totally natural.
Absolutely brilliant. And so what we'll be doing then, I'll say we, but what we'll be doing then is helping people learn to do that skill using dowsing and then really accessing their intuition and starting on that path of really developing their true self, their whole self, in conjunction with that natural world of nature. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, it's like you and I know these abilities are there. They're like dormant within us. And if you and I can ignite a spark so that people begin to explore them and connect with them, we know the wonders of our own magic and potential that exists through dowsing, through earth energies, through just then connecting with the greater consciousness, the quantum mind of nature.
Why do you feel that now nature is really calling to people to connect with it in this way? Because there is, as you said earlier on, it definitely is nature saying, come on back to this energy. Why now?
Yes. I'll answer that on two levels. One is we're all aware of the physical issues going on in the world in terms of nature and the destruction and the disrespect that's happening in every part of the world in for every element. Air pollution, even space pollution now, the subtle grids of the light grids are being polluted with um, radio waves, everything, oceans, land, everything is polluted, interfered with. Um, and that in turn affects in areas around the world where that's happening. It does affect the interaction that the nature spirits want to make with humans and that part of nature. As in, well, if you're not going to bother, I'm going to step aside and I'll wait patiently in the wings until you start listening again. Um, and there's also in the subtle grid, and it's where I talk about the matrix a lot. The subtle grid, there is a kind of it's because everything's vibration. If you're constantly putting out vibration of destruction, it's going to have it's like pounding effect on the grid that's affecting it. So there's a reweaving that's going on that needs to go on in the subtle levels, which then we manifest from the subtle levels down to the other thing is from the earth upwards, and written into our earth at the beginning of time was, our earth paced herself down to become physical. So she has within her the wisdom of eternity. And it's like another level. My own feeling, and this is personal, it's my own feeling was when we hit 2000 and then 2012, and then incrementally since, there has been a pacing up of this old wisdom that's saying more people are incarnating that want to work with it, more people are interested. So more wisdom is being released from the earth. It's kind of a two-way thing. And we're the conduit, it meets in the middle. So we're the bridge between the subtle realms of nature, the physical realms, and what lies beneath, and bringing it together through dowsing the energies of the land, place, through connecting with nature in a way that respects and grows. Rather than just planting trees willy-nilly, it's, does the tree want to be planted? Does nature want the tree planted? How is it going to affect the grid? What's happening in the wisdom of the land there? So that's and we know that, we instinctively know that. So we're going out into nature because we're looking with all of our senses, going, something's going on here, I'm not sure what. So if you and I can help people, can show them this is what's going on, this is how you can embrace it, grow it, work with it, the world really does begin to change.
100%. Thank you, Shelley. Been wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much. And we will get you back again around about September or so, and you can tell us more about that course, more about exactly what you're going to be doing with people, what people can do to join in. But in the meantime, really, we want to send people over to your website, which is
floweressencefarming.com.
floweressencefarming.com, and you can find Shelley on Instagram.
Flower Essence Farming.
Flower Essence Farming. There you go. Fantastic. Thank you, Shelley. It's been wonderful.
Thank you, Tim.